Apparently, God's shining his light on me tonight. It's awesome, as he does every day. Please join me in a moment of prayer. God, thank you for your love, grace, and peace. Please use me as your vessel. Use this testimony to convey your love, healing, hope, and grace. Amen. I'm going to try to keep to my script because sometimes I zigzag off into Never Land. But anyway, my name's Rob. I'm a Christian in recovery from alcohol, drugs, pride, ego, lust, anxiety, and anger, and I'm sure there's more that I'll find out tomorrow. This also means I'm a human being and I have a sinful nature. And I'll tell you where I come from. I have no excuse. I say I have no excuse because I've always known there was a God, even when I sin. But I'll tell you where I come from. I did carry this Bible. This is from Sunday school class when I was a little boy, and when I could have got the hint and saved a lot of misery. But I was born as a middle child of 3 boys in upstate New York, the rural section of New York, not New York City. We went hunting out the backyard. My parents were together my whole life. I didn't come from a divorced family. I didn't come from an alcoholic family. They were married till my dad passed away in 2010. My mom still lives in Englewood, Florida. She's 85. I played in the woods with my brother and my 2 brothers and friends growing up. Like I said, we were hunting, fishing. You can see by some of the pictures. I was always with my dad and my grandfather. We'd go out. I played baseball and other sports, attended church and Sunday school weekly. I was baptized as a baby, and I accepted Jesus at a vacation Bible school in my little hometown. And I remember my brothers going, "You don't have to go down there." Because the lady that was running it's like, "Come down and accept Jesus." And he's like, "You don't have to go." And I'm like, "No, I want him." Even when I was a little kid, I wanted him, and I still led a life of misery because it was life according to Rob, not life according to God. And I'll get into that more. I attended school daily. My mom made sure we all attended school daily. I was disciplined at home the old school way, the belt, fly swatter, whatever was available. So that was a type of discipline. But my parents, they loved and cared about us, and so did my whole extended family. In elementary school and middle school, I was a little joker, and I'd get in minor trouble. I'd get sent to the principal's office, things like that. And I was taught to help people and be kind to other people. And I always tried to do that throughout my life. Even the people that I injured, I tried. My basic human instinct was grained into me to help and be kind. In high school, I started partying. We would party in the woods. We used alcohol and marijuana. I became very interested in drugs. I always had to be the best, no matter what sporting activity we were playing or having BB gun fights, fighting. I always had to be the best, so which added to my ego problem. But when it came to drugs, I decided I'd have to be the best. When it came to partying, I thought I'd have to be the best. So I wanted to sell the most weed. I had to, drink the most, and my ego was just, it's always has been high, and at that point, everything had to be my way. I had to be in control of everything. It was a world according to Rob, not God. I attended most of my classes in high school. I was stoned a lot of the day, but I'd be able to pass them. My athletic ability diminished because of the smoking and drinking and drugging. I dropped out of cross country and baseball. I had some long-term girlfriends in high school. I began to work more at like gas stations and jobs like that. This gave me more money to sell more marijuana and party and drink more, all while I occasionally went to church and lived at my parents' house. I graduated high school and went to college. I increased my drinking, my girlfriends increased, and I finally got a DWI after being best man at my best friend's wedding. This is when I was 19 years old, and my best friend was 19 years old, and him and his girlfriend ended up getting married because she got pregnant, basically. So I went to the wedding. I was best man. We were partying. Then, of course, I had a pig roast of my extended families that I had to go to after that. So after reception, I went there. Then I flipped my car, and coming down the road, I failed to navigate a curve, and this family had just gone inside the house to have dinner because they had a reunion out front. So I flipped the car, and this guy came out, and he was really upset and mad. And he said, well, stay here for the police. And I said, yeah, no problem. Just help me turn the car back over. And of course, the windshield's caved in, and so he helped me turn it over, and of course, I took off and went back to my house. But obviously, they got the police. They got the number and tracked me down. So I went to jail, just stayed overnight, and actually, I wanted them to keep me instead of returning them to my parents, but they returned me to the parents. So that, you would think that would dawn on me, like there's a problem, but no. I'd fall asleep in a car if we were out partying. We'd be partying. There were other accidents, but back in that time, it was whenever the state police showed up, you just said, I only had 2 beers, and they'd let you go. In that time period also, there'd be a time where I wouldn't remember. While in college, and I got off that DUI because I was in law enforcement school. That's how whacked out my head is. That's how twisted it was. Not that it's not now, but God helps me untwist it. So anyway, I graduated law enforcement, criminal justice, and I transferred to a 4-year college. And I graduated there. I was able to pass my grades, keep things under control, do the old thing. Oh, I'll drink less now. Okay, I'll drink until that exam's over. I'll only drink 4 beers instead of a 12-pack. So up and down. That's how my whole life's always been like that. So I graduated, started dating my wife in college the last year. We moved to Syracuse from Cortland, which was a bigger town where we could get jobs. I worked in juvenile detention and child protective investigations. We'd get abuse reports. I'd go to schools, interview kids. Well-respected jobs I had. And then I'd go home and smoke pot and drink alcohol and try to limit it so when I had to testify the next day in court that I wouldn't lose it. So little whack there, but God saved a wretch like me. So, okay. My wife was putting up with me at the time because I was able to limit it somewhat, and we ended up having a son that you saw up there. Ben, we attended church, had him baptized, and I was playing softball for the church up there in Baldwinsville, right by Syracuse, and going hunting and trying to provide for the family, and Sue started not being so happy, unbelievably, with all the drinking. And on the weekends I'd really be drinking and not do things at home like I'm sure she wanted me to do. Work on the house, things like that. So our relationship started to get a little rocky, and then the economy started going downhill in the 1990s. And she got laid off. I was laid off for one day. I worked for the county. And we said, well, let's sell our house up here and move to Florida. So we packed up. I got a job down here with the Department of Juvenile Justice. And we said, we're going to make a new start down here in Florida. She stayed up there, packed up the house. I came down, started working. There was only one problem. I came down with myself. So I came down here with myself, which brought all my sinful nature down with me that I had to, my clean slate didn't start, it started out better. I'd limit my alcohol intake because I had a new job. The Department of Juvenile Justice started testing for marijuana, so I had to keep money coming in, so I had to give that up. Actually, God took that away from me. But that increased my drinking because that's legal. So, of course, I could increase my drinking. So I kept my limit, of 4 beers, which was really 8 beers, or 12 beers, or I can't remember. And also, it depended on the situation, what was going on, like if the day ended in a Y, then I could have more beers. Any excuse. However, I still was looking for a church down here. Church has always been in my life. No matter how bad, of course, I'd be, God, please get me out of this. Please, I won't drink as much if you get this DUI taken care of. Things like that. The wrong kind of prayers. So I was looking for a church and lived in Fort Myers, so when I wasn't too hungover on a Sunday morning, Sue was working, so I'd take Ben to different churches and we'd check them out, and we found one in East Fort Myers, Fort Myers Shores, even before we had our house. And there's certain God things. If you don't know what a God thing is, God works in your life, and you don't realize it right away, but you look back and you're like, that's a God thing. So we found that, so we ended up living out there and being part of that church. At the time, it was Fort Myers Shores United Methodist Church. We got involved in Boy Scouts out there. We got involved in Little League. I was working, in juvenile justice. We had a second son, Bobby. I did all my fatherly duties, and all the while, I'd try to go out partying, go to the bar. I compensated for that, all my alcoholic drinking, by keeping busy. So I wouldn't drink while I coached. I coached 2 baseball teams. I was a den leader, a cub master. I'd go out on campouts, take the kids out, and once they all went to bed, I'd be drinking by myself in the middle of the woods, and I'd be like, well, I deserve this, I worked hard all day with these kids. I was messing, that's how my alcoholic thinking was. That was my life according to Rob reasoning, the world according to Rob. I helped kids, so I must be going to heaven, no matter how much misery my drinking's causing my wife and my family. I help people, so I must go to heaven. Finally, in May 2005, after a Memorial Day weekend, me and my wife went up to Englewood, and that's where my parents lived, so the kids stayed with my parents, and we had a weekend up there of drinking. And we came back to pick up the kids, and my dad's like telling me about AA and how his friends in the Army in World War II went to AA meetings to quit drinking. And I'm like, why is he telling me this? So I'm like, I don't know why he's telling me this. But then Sue and me got home, and we put the kids to bed, and Sue goes, that's it. We need a divorce. And I'm like, hold on. I'm an upstanding citizen of the United States of America. I have a job, I pay taxes, I own a house, I'm a Boy Scout leader, and I coach 2 teams, and I umpire. I'm outstanding. How could you ever want to divorce such a person? And a doctor told me once too, this was in 1998, a doctor told me about AA because my liver enzymes were up so high. He goes, you're going to be dead in about 10 years if you don't quit drinking. And I was insulted in the same way. I pay taxes. This doctor must not know what he's talking about. I'm going to have to get a second opinion. But anyway, Sue was, she's like, nah, you got to go. You don't need a family. You're too intoxicated. So the next day, at this time I wasn't working for juvenile justice. I was making more money building houses. I had 2 trucks in the driveway, car, house, everything you work for, everything I was brought up to work for that I thought was the world. So I said, I just can't quit drinking. Now Sue's going to leave me, so the kids went to school. Sue went to work. I called in work. I go, I'm not coming in today. And my supervisor was joking around. And I sat there and I said, I just can't give it up. I just can't stop drinking. So I got my revolver, and I was going, the only way I can stop is shooting myself in the head. So I went to do that, and I hear, call Casey. And I said, what the heck is that? So I go, Casey's my minister at church. By that time, it was Grace Church, East Campus. So I go, man, that sounds like a better alternative. So I looked the church's phone number up, which I didn't have after going there for like all these years. Looked the phone number up, and I called Casey, and he got all excited. I go, Casey, I can't quit drinking. I'm going to end my life if I can't quit drinking. I need help. And I don't think I said I was going to end my life because I figured I had enough knowledge at that point knowing police would come to my house and I'd get arrested, and I didn't want that. Or at least put somewhere for my own safety. So I called Casey, and he said, oh, man, there's this thing called Celebrate Recovery. You got to check this out. It's on Friday nights. Here's a phone number. There's a person named Arlene. You need to call up there and get the information. So I said, okay. So I called, and I called Arlene, and she's like, oh, this is here on Friday nights. But I got the AA number within that time period too. And so I looked it up, and I got addresses. I called the AA number, and I got addresses, but I didn't go to an AA meeting. This was like on a Tuesday. I went to work every day and came home and locked myself in my room so I wouldn't drink. So I didn't drink until that Friday night. So I come up here on that Friday night, and I drove by a couple places that were mentioned in the AA that the AA gave me, and one was Dry Palms over in North Fort Myers. So just to check out, just in case there was a glimmer of hope and this could actually work. So I came to Celebrate Recovery in this room, and clap my hands and whatever, and oh my gosh, what's all this stuff? And then they said 101s afterwards, so if you never went to 101, you should go to it. So I went to 101, and there was this guy, Tom and Sherry. And Sherry's now my pastor over at the other church, Small World. And they're sitting there, and I'm pouring my heart out, going, I can't drink, I drink, and my life's falling apart, and it must be the drinking, I don't know, but maybe. So Tom goes, I need to talk to you after a meeting. So after the meeting goes, you might want to try AA meetings. This is only once a week. You may need more than just once a week. So I go, oh man, more bad news. So he gives me the phone number. He gives me the phone number, and he gave me his phone number. So next day we have a scout thing at the church, and we did some project, and then it's 11:30. So this is my drinking time. So I start shaking, because I know I'm supposed to be home right after the project and start drinking, because that's my routines for so many years. So I get this piece of paper, I call Tom, and I'm like, Tom, I don't know, man, maybe you're right, because I'm shaking pretty bad. He goes, you need me to pick you up? You need a meeting. I'm like, no, I'm pretty good. He goes, I'll meet you at Dry Palms. He goes, where's that? And that day I went to Dry Palms and sat through the meeting, and I read the 12 steps they had, and I go, I got this, man. I got the God thing. I grew up in church. That's step 1 through 3. I know I'm an alcoholic, and I got 25 seconds left, so I better make this. But this is a good story. So I tell Tom, and God works through people. God works through people, and Tom's one of them people, the angels that he worked through. But so I meet Tom up there, and I know the 12 steps, so I come out, and I go, yeah, they say you got to have a sponsor too. I go, Tom, how about you being my sponsor? He goes, I'll be your temporary sponsor. He didn't know 13-year temporary sponsor. But I go, I got this God thing. I go, I got 1, 2, 3. He goes, oh, really? You got 1, 2, 3? I go, yeah, I'm an alcoholic. I just admitted it in there. I got God. I got the God thing. He goes, you got the God thing? He goes, does God want you to drink? I go, you don't understand. I go, I help kids. I'm a coach. I do all this stuff. He goes, no, that's not what I mean. I go, does God want you to drink? I go, that doesn't, what are you talking about? I help kids. I'm earning my way into heaven, and everything's hunky-dory. He goes, does God want you to drink? I'm like, oh my God, this program and the sponsor and being held accountable, this is no fun. And I said, no, God does not want me to drink. And he took that from me right then, and I haven't drank since then. It's all because of God and Jesus. So from there, I started attending Celebrate Recovery daily or weekly, and I went to meetings and I worked the steps. And with Tom's help, of course. And there are other examples. I was up to I was going on this family reunion up in the mountains, so I didn't have the phone because he's like, everybody's like, well, call your accountability people and they'll help you through the situation. So he goes, well, take your big book because it says God in there like so many times. And so I took my big book, and my wife's family was up there, and they were drinking and we caught a bunch of fish. So everybody's drinking, and I'm like, oh my God. I start shaking because I want to drink. And I start getting sick to my stomach. So I go to my room, and I open the big book, and there's the word God. And God doesn't want me to drink. And I got calm and peace and hope. And I just said, oh man. And I went right back there, all calm and everything. I go, man, God is great. All the time. That's it. So that was awesome. And that's how God's been working in my life. Like I said, I work the steps. I sponsor men, lead a step study. This is another God thing. I wanna touch on this. I'm running long, and I never thought I would be a chaplain. I'm a chaplain now because of God, because of people in this room and recovery and being closer to God. And when the fog left my mind, I started figuring things out. And I can worship God better. And I can share his hope better without a clouded mind. But I went to a Bible study, and Pastor Sherry's going, well, what's one thing you would want to do if you're 85 years old and you're sitting in your living room with your feet up and you look back at your life? What's one thing you would want that you hadn't done? And I'm going, chaplain, because I knew a few chaplains, but I lost track of this guy for 2 years. So I said, man, I should be a chaplain. 2 weeks later, I was attending chaplain class because a week later, we buried a friend in the program, and a guy that I knew that knew my buddy Alan, that's a chaplain, said he was there. And I asked him, I go, you ever see Alan? He goes, I see him all the time. Here's his phone number. I had lost his phone number. I call Alan. Alan, this is a God thing. I go, Alan, I'm interested in being a chaplain. He goes, oh, there's chaplain class Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of next week down at the Estero Fire Department. And I go, oh my God, I have next Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday off of work. So I went down there, and I've been going to chaplain classes, and I got ordained chaplain and things like that, all because of coming here and worshiping God in the right way, getting a clear mind, and learning from everybody here. 13 years ago, I came here in this room, and now I worship God the right way, and He's blessed my life so much. Me and Sue are still together. She didn't leave me after all. So that was one good thing. And now I try not to see the world according to Rob. I try to see the world according to God. Not that I don't take back my anger on occasion, like earlier this week at work, but I go over that with my accountability partners. But Jesus said in John 13:34, a new command I give to you, love one another. By this everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. So from a sinner like me, I try to show love all the time now, and people show back. So, and that's Jesus' teaching. God knew we needed teaching, so he sent Jesus down to die for our sins and take it all away, and take our past away, and people that we've hurt, take it away. He's making our spirits white as snow. Okay, well, I'm 7 minutes over. God loves you, and so do I. Thank you. Sorry about the 7 minutes.
Oh, gosh. Oh, my goodness. Rob. I love you, Rob. Love you, Rob. Absolutely. Yes.